Welcome, friends,
to the How-To Heretic.
I'm Uncle Mark.
I'm Uncle Dan.
I'm Uncle Doug.
And this is your user's guide to life on the outside.
That's right. Leaving religion is the first step into a larger, better world.
But it can also be a scary world. Things work differently now.
Never fear. That's why we're here.
We're your audio uncles. And with help from good friends and experts in all sorts of fields.
We're going to share the stories and seek the knowledge to build a great life.
After all, you only get the one that we know of, so you better make the most of it.
Well, uncles.
Yo.
Howdy do.
Howdy do. Dan is back from Spain. I am back from the land of the dead.
Yeah.
And feeling kicky. So
we got all three uncles.
Yeah, and we had to do a little scramble on our side because there's a storm hitting our area, and internet was out at both of our houses, so we had to avail ourselves of a
third location, of an undisclosed location,
a bunker.
Yes, of even more undisclosed location, but that is the love we feel for you all.
That's right.
To do such things as to drive a couple miles to a different place. So,
scurry over to somebody else's house.
So you're welcome. Here's episode 121, fresh off the press. I am going to talk about Heaven's Colored Only entrance with Jane Manning James, and it's a real rib tickler, this story.
Oh yeah, it's sure a treat.
I'm going to take on the last half of the book of Genesis and put it to bed, hopefully forever.
Oh,
yep.
Would that were the case.
That were the case.
And I am going to talk about art. Do you guys like art? That's what I'm going to talk about.
I like art.
Like you Thomas Kincaid, you're John McNaughton. Yeah.
I don't know much about art, but I know what I don't like.
Mormon Rockwell. So we're gonna talk about some art. It's gonna be fun. Not too many tears this episode, so that's a nice change. So join us, won't you?
You already are. Let's continue.
Yes, let's move on.
Hey, Uncle Doug.
Uncle Dan.
You know, one of my favorite places to visit here in Salt Lake City is the Salt Lake City Cemetery.
I know it is. It truly is.
I go there all the time.
Yeah.
I love it. And one time I went there, and I just sort of tootle around to different parts and see who's buried where. And I saw a gravestone for that had a whole bunch of like engraved brass, and I was like, I don't. What is that? And I went over, and it's the person that Uncle Mark is going to tell us about.
Yeah. Well, and we should mention that cemetery, for those of our listeners who've never been to it or haven't been to Utah, is arrestingly beautiful.
Yeah,
truly beautiful cemetery.
Yeah, nestled up into the foothills of the mountains. Mm-hmm. One time just last summer, I happened to be there when a migration of butterflies was coming through, and I just got to be surrounded by millions of butterflies.
Very cool.
That kind of shit just happens there. It's a magical place.
It is.
It is also the resting place of so many of Mormon history's goodies and baddies.
Yes, indeed.
But today, let's talk about one that I think is kind of a goodie, and I like this one. So,
yay!
Yes, we're not well. Villains will be discussed, but the topic of our discussion today is actually not a villain, which is refreshing, I think.
Yeah.
So as you guys were alluding to, we've been around the big square block of Mormon history and all things Mormon generally many a time. But we can still be caught by surprise. And though I'm now much more knowledgeable about today's subject, I was caught off guard about it right here on this very show when our friend Bryce Blankenagel, amateur Mormon historian par excellence and host of the Deep Dive Mormon History podcast Naked Mormonism, mentioned her in episode 29. I was, of course, shocked, though by now we should find nothing in Mormon history shocking or conversely, everything in Mormon history shocking.
Right.
So I've read quite a bit, even touching on her myself in my review of the most excellent Mormon book, The Church and the Negro, in episode 87, which I recommend everybody read. So let us cut to the chase and dive into discussing the incredible life and peculiar circumstances of Jane Manning James, a true pioneer badass and a most remarkable woman who, even against crazy odds, refused to take no for an answer. So, born Jane Elizabeth Manning in May of 1813 in rural Connecticut, Jane was from a free black family long before the issue of slavery in America was, air quotes, resolved by a civil war and the Emancipation Proclamation. Editor's note, it really hasn't ever been resolved. But in 1813, it was still 50 years away from any attempt at resolution.
Right.
Young Jane was sent away to live with and naturally serve a white family, a period of 30 years about which little is known other than she was raised and baptized a Presbyterian by her host family and bore a son named Sylvester. Then one fateful day in 1842, 2 Mormon missionaries stopped by the home of the family Jane was living with, and for whatever reason her interest was piqued. Her Presbyterian minister forbade anyone from doing so, but Jane attended a Mormon service in the next Sunday and was baptized a week after that.
And thus began the worst things that could happen to her.
And let's all remember, there was no Google in those days. So.
Yeah, that's right.
Also, if you were a black woman in 1842, every choose-your-own-adventure ended badly. So
that's true.
This was one of the bad choices she was able to make. So, and it seems she was a pretty influential woman among her peers, so soon much of her family and acquaintances had joined up as well. So I want to take a quick second to talk about the idea of hopeful religion hopping, or the phenomenon of people jumping religions because one promises a slightly better benefits package than the last one. Doug, as a Mormon missionary in an impoverished country, you may know a bit about this. Right?
A bit of a connoisseur, you might say.
Someone who encouraged people to make the leap.
Yeah. By the time Doug baptized people, they were probably 10 religions in and had 10 more to go before they were finished, right? So this was common during Jane's time, and it's no less common now, especially where poverty is endemic. And aside from all the racism, we'll get there in a second, Mormonism did offer things to the beleaguered of the early 19th century America that most other religions didn't. And those were all the land out west a heart could plow, and the economic possibility that came with that, the democratization of priestly power and direct access to God and revelation, well, for men only, but still, and a sparkling utopian promise of health, wealth, and eternal life that was very attractive to denizens of the dismal slums and impoverished hollers of the old 13 colonies. Does it matter that the revelations and priesthood powers were things Jane couldn't have in the Western Mormon utopia? Well, she didn't have them in rural Connecticut, so might as well be fairly powerless someplace nicer, right? and that someplace nicer turned out to be the most recent of Mormon church founder Joseph Smith's New Jerusalems, a sticky hot mosquito swamp, he was kind of an idiot, on the Mississippi River called Nauvoo, Illinois. And by God, Jane and her people, meaning Jane and 8 of her family members, were determined to get there. How determined? So determined that when they walked all the way to Buffalo, New York, and found they couldn't afford the train fare, they said fuck it and walked 800 miles to get there.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Jane wrote that they wore out the soles of their shoes and then the soles of their actual feet, leaving footprints of blood behind them. Now, this is
then
where
they wore out their ankles.
That's right. This is where there was only one set of footprints, right? Why were there only one set of footprints? Because the others were kind of stumps. So that's wanting something pretty bad, if you ask me. Also, consider the straight iron balls of a group of black people walking 800 miles across the America of 1843, free or not, when the Mason-Dixon line, the demarcation between slave states and free, was the southern border of all the states they crossed.
Yikes.
Yes. Yeah. And just for fun, imagine a black family doing that in the America of 2020. Totes fine, right? Like, it's good. Look how far we've come, everybody.
Oh,
we did it. So, long story short, Jane and company arrive in Nauvoo, and she finds work and lodging with no less a personage than the Lieutenant General of the Nauvoo Legion, prophet, seer, revelator, Joseph Smith, and his wife, his only wife, as far as she knew, Emma. Like many people, Jane was impressed with the prophet and declared him the finest man I ever saw on earth. She happily served and lived with the Smiths until Joseph got himself killed by a mob of his disgruntled former followers in 1844.
Yeah, that'll happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's a occupational hazard of being a prophet/rapist. One fine day before the impending murder, the prophet's mother, Lucy, bade Jane to bring her a cloth-wrapped bundle from a shelf. she opened it to reveal a sort of spectacle thing called the Urim and Thummim.
Ooh, she got to see the Urim and Thummim?
She got to see the Urim and Thummim, which was supposed to be an artifact, pardon me, getting over my cold here, supposed to be an artifact made by pre-Columbian Jews, the pre-Columbian Jews of the Americas called the Nephites, that survived thousands of years so that her son Joseph could translate the golden plates upon which was scribed the Book of Mormon. How about that? Well, except that just a few short years ago, official Mormondom, without a word of explanation, unhappened the magic translating spectacles and replaced them with a little milk dud of a rock that Joseph placed in a hat he stuck his face into to translate the non-existent language of Reformed Egyptian into Elizabethan English. Sorry, Jane, you got retroactively punked.
So what do we think was in the bundle? What do you think it was? Was it just a pair of eyeglasses?
He probably had some little doohickey,
There was no bundle. None of this happened. We know that she's a real person, but like the stories surrounding all of these things, I'm always just
Well, this is from Jane. Apparently, that's in Jane's own words, and of all the Mormon accounts I've ever read, she seems the least liar. You know?
Joseph built some kind of golden plate facsimile that he didn't show anybody, but he carried around in a pillowcase. And,
Yeah.
I mean, like he was committed to the bit enough, to make a wooden box and paint it gold or something like that.
He could have made a Urim and Thummim.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, it was probably some doohickey he found, and like an old piece of surveying equipment, and stuck a crystal in it or something. But anyway, let's not get stuck in the Urim and Thummim again. But prior to that, Emma Smith, who seemed genuinely fond of Jane, offered to adopt her and have her sealed to Joseph and herself. Jane declined, later saying she didn't really understand what was being offered. She might have thought it was some freaky frontier three-way or something, known by BYU historians as the Nauvoo Rameumptum. But, yeah, little known, very rare, very beautiful. Well, that's why garments of the day had no kind of covering of the junk. You needed full access to the pole in the hole.
God.
you could, out of a crowd of 1,000 people, if you threatened them with death if they're Mormon, and you told that joke, the Mormon in the crowd would laugh.
Yeah, probably. So, joking aside, for our never Mormon listeners, being sealed to a person means going through a ceremony in the very exclusive and secretive Mormon temples where you are bound to that person for all the eternities as either a husband or a wife or other family member.
Right.
If you're a true believing Mormon, it's kind of a huge deal. If indeed Emma offered this to Jane, it speaks to a very unusual instance of top Mormon brass looking not only past the almost 100% universal racism of even the American North at the time, but also past the clearly spelled out doctrinal racism? That's nicer. It's a nicer word. Racism. The doctrinal racism of the church Emma's husband, Joseph, had so recently pulled out of his ass.
Yeah.
So, in short, and I'll make this very brief, what did the Mormonism of 1843, and truth be told, modern Mormonism, because this shit is all still on the books, think about people of African descent? Note, of course, we're all of African descent, some just more recently than others. So in short, is a basic overview of Mormon race theory, which is mine, and here it is. In the beginning, Cain made an insufficient offering to the Lord shortly after his weird family got evicted from the Garden of Eden for a fruit-based misdemeanor fomented by a snake, whose whereabouts remain unknown. Abel's offering was better, so Cain committed the first murder with malice aforethought and then lied about it. With me so far, it gets weirder. According to early Mormon thinking, he did this because Lucifer had told him that it was Abel's seed through which Jesus Christ would be born, and neither of them wanted that. So Cain pre-crimed Abel to prevent Jesus from being born, which somehow happened anyway. Then Jesus' dad, in the form of the Jews, killed Jesus. Therefore, what the fuck is this hot mess of a stupid story anyway? But hold on, any would-be scriptural racists out there, we got to rewind a bit. Before God made Adam of mud and Eve of dirt and then remade her without explanation from Adam's rib, before all that, there was a war in heaven. It's true. So there were both good guys and bad guys, but the worstest guys just couldn't make up their minds and sat it out. So those neutral spirits got to be born as black people. Got it? So then, like I said, Cain and Abel, but wait, then there was the all-loving God killed everybody but a guy with a boat and his family, and two each of millions of carefully curated species. But as bad luck would have it, one of Noah's sons, Ham, had married a girl carrying the mark of Cain, meaning black, named Egyptus. Then his dad got drunk and naked in Hamsheim, and so boom, obviously black people again. Then Ham and Egyptus left the family in shame and populated Africa, and their grandson became Pharaoh of the story of Exodus, described as, quote, first governor of Egypt, and critically to Mormons, Pharaoh was a real person named Ramses II, who was neither the first nor second governor of Egypt, but rather the third Pharaoh of the 19th dynasty. So as you can see, please do believe everything Mormons have to say about race and everything else. The math checks out. So, now that everybody understands that, back to our friend Jane Manic James. For whichever of the blizzard of reasons I just laid out, Jane was black. So, while she and her family, and a very few others, were on some level welcomed into the growing number of the westward bound saints, they were prevented by their premortal sin from gaining rank or holding the priesthood. They were welcome to pay tithing, they could do charity work, they could clean the toilets, but that was it. Isn't that nice? So, after Joseph Smith's various long cons caught up to him in the form of a hail of bullets at the window of the Carthage jail, Jane found herself in the employ of the man who seized power, from whom many thought would be the rightful heir, the young Joseph Smith III, with his mother Emma acting as caretaker of the nascent prophet.
Yeah.
Brigham, as we've explored, was a monstrous piece of shit of the First Order, and a ferocious racist, even by the terrible standards of the day. He ordered the saints loyal to him to move west yet again, while Joseph's widow, Emma, and her son stayed behind in nearby Independence, Missouri. And I really don't know why Jane chose to move west with the evil Brigham rather than stay behind with the recently widowed Emma, who seemed like an actual friend to whom she must have felt some real love and loyalty. But move she did. So... Yeah. Jane arrived in Salt Lake City among the very first pioneers in 1847. She and her remaining family comprised... I love Mormon history. She and her remaining family comprised 1/3 of the 12 African Americans in the state of Utah, and they were the only free ones. Yes, wow, Virginia, yeah. Mormons up to and including Brigham Young owned slaves, one of which, a man by the name of Green Flake, drove Brigham's personal wagon and would later be given to the church as a human tithing payment. So that's nice. Right, guys?
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it's a true story. Jane and family.
I just have to imagine Jane and her family. Do you guys remember the scene in Blazing Saddles where the one black family is in a wagon train and they have, and then the wagons circle and they have to form their own circle when the Indians come down?
Oh, fuck. Yep, it's pretty much like that. Yeah, so... Jane and family, like their white neighbors, were soon suffering from hunger under the dry Utah skies and Brigham Young's idiot settlement ideas and agricultural ideas. A neighbor and her children were on the brink of starvation after the wise church elders had sent her husband on a mission to California, which he accepted even though there wasn't so much as a crust of bread in the house for his children to eat when he left. Jane split her meager flour provisions in half and gave them to her desperate neighbor. Generous indeed, but for some damned reason, this is the act for which Mormons seem to best know her, and is in fact, as Dan mentioned, immortalized in a bronze plaque on her gravesite, erected by a Mormon organization. Her church remembers her for the time she gave half her flour to a white woman, so why not?
Jeez.
So Jane and family managed to survive the shitty early days of life in Utah. Her daughter... Marianne may well have been the first African-American born in the state of Utah, in the Utah Territory. Soon after the family had pulled themselves out of poverty, and they were doing okay, having been super careful with their money and land, and managed to get a little cache of livestock together, which is what passed for wealth at the time, so good for them. But here's the real kick in the petticoat of the Jane Manning James story. So serious was she about her eternal advancement, so dedicated was she to a church that did not really want to have her as a member, that she aggressively continued to petition the highest ranks of the church to be sealed to Joseph and Emma, as Emma had originally offered her, and she was rebuffed every time. Before the doctrine of racism, weirdly enough, this is a whole other story for another time, became ironclad in Mormonism, the weird dreamer and founder Joseph Smith had ordained a precious few black men into the priesthood. There were black priesthood holders.
Yeah.
One of them had made it all the way to Salt Lake City, a guy by the name of Kwaku Walker Lewis. Side note, Walker Lewis, a hero of the Underground Railroad in Massachusetts, hated his time in Utah. He was ignored and disdained by the Mormons who had been his friends out east, and quickly left Utah after Brigham Young had it declared a slave state.
Weird and shocking.
Right. Why is he so emotional?
Right?
And again, even though she had a black priesthood elder willing to be sealed to her, her pleas were ignored. But she didn't let up. And let's pause to point out that even today, Mormon women are not encouraged to have very vocal opinions about, well, anything.
Anything.
Yeah.
Anything.
They're wearing pants to church almost caused a fucking revolution like 3 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So this was a woman of color in the heart of a brutally misogynistic, doctrinally racist theocracy, and she was not going through a normal Mormon male authority figure chain of command. She was demanding her right to eternal guarantees from the first presidency of the church directly, whom she all knew personally because she'd served 2 prophets, right?
Yeah.
And this is in the 19th century, so that's just astonishing on its own. So persistent was she that the bigots who ran the place finally decided to come up with something to try to placate this relentless daughter of Cain. Are you ready for what the wise fathers at Temple Square came up with, guys?
It's just so good.
They put their big brains together and decided...
Let us remember that these are the moral leaders of the community. These are the ethical and godly men.
The voice of God on earth.
Yeah.
And at the time, they were the leaders of all things. They were the law. They were
Yes.
the state government, the city government. They were everything. So they decided that the faithful servant, Jane Manning James, could indeed be sealed to the very white and delightsome Joseph and Emma Smith for time and all eternity as a servant. Much like one of our patron heavens, Jane would get to live out forever folding towels and ironing sheets for white people, a fate death could not even spare her from.
Oh, my God.
So, hey, black folks interested in Mormonism, did I just close the deal for you? So, and if that wasn't amazing enough, Jane was unable to even attend her own, by proxy, permanent inservitizing ceremony in the temple because black.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
She
Why
couldn't
would they
go
let
in.
her in? That would be ridiculous.
It was Joseph Fielding Smith and his wife were the proxies for it. So it sounds like through this whole story, Joseph Fielding Smith spent years just trying to make this woman go away, right?
Yeah.
And he failed. So
Right.
I bet most Mormons didn't know heaven has a service entrance, but I'm sure they'll rest easier knowing it does.
Yeah.
So
Oh, my God.
Jane died nearly a decade later in 1908, still petitioning the assholes at Temple Square for her full endowments and sealings because for some weird reason she wasn't really down with the arrangement they'd made for her.
Weird.
At her funeral, her nemesis, then Mormon prophet Joseph F. Smith, kept the church's record of getting everything totally, horribly, almost comically wrong by stating that in the resurrection, Jane Manning James would at last attain the longing of her soul and become a white and beautiful person.
Oh, you didn't see that coming? Come on, Doug. You just
in
aren't
short-
paying attention to this show.
So in short, fuck him, fuck them, and fuck all that noise. But to conclude, take a minute to realize that none of us, and probably nobody listening to this, will ever be half the badass that formidable frontier woman Jane Manning James was.
Yeah,
If you care to, as Dan said, and he can tell you where it is, you can visit her grave in the Salt Lake City Cemetery, where she is honored for giving half her shit to a white lady, rather than driving the church elders half mad as they had to continually confront their own racism at her behest. And I have a feeling, fellas, even if Sister Jane managed to get into the celestial kingdom via the colored entrance, she ain't folding towels for a flock of teenage sister wives.
She is probably one of the main reasons that Brigham and those following would make absolute pronouncements about how there will never, ever be black people ordained to the priesthood or given full endowment.
Maybe it was her. Maybe
Yeah.
it was just to get her to shut up.
Yeah, which of course they were correct about all the way up until the late 70s.
Yeah.
That's right. And just as a coda on that, so 78 was the rescinding of the racist policy outwardly, but it's still
Right.
on the books, right?
Yep.
The following year, somebody went and did her temple work and had her sealed and given her endowments. So,
Oh, really?
yeah. So, good job, I guess.
I think a little too little, a little too late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, by
too
now
little
she's
of that.
white, so it's all fine.
Yeah, she's all good, but she's still but she's still a servant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
The God gives and God takes away. So that's Jane Manning James, guys.
All right. I'm sad and confused. Let's move on.
Let's move on.
Uncle Mark. Mm-hmm. I am not a cultured man. I'm not what one would call a sophisticated man.
No, you are not the yogurt of this podcast.
You're
But
brute,
you are
really.
bland and
I'm
white.
a simpleton. Yes, I know what I like, and I like simple things.
Yes.
I like a nice Beaujolais, and
Now is that a kind of fruit?
originally.
Originally, yeah, and mayonnaise, Beaujolais and
I like
mayonnaise.
Beaujolais and mayonnaise.
Yeah, so you're Belgian.
Have you ever had Beaujolais? Because that is the good stuff right there.
Oh,
It's like the fry sauce of the Rhone region.
It's French fry sauce.
I
Yeah.
need to change my diaper. Anywho, so where do we turn? We don't turn to Uncle Doug if we want culture. Where do we go? Where do we go, Uncle Dan?
Well, to Spain, apparently.
Yes.
Yeah, because as our keen listeners may remember, last week I bragged about having recently traveled to and all around that fair country. And oh, look, I'm doing it again. Anyway, while there, I experienced quite a lot of art, actually, from the Goyas, Rubens, and Caravaggios of the Prado to the Picassos and Dalis at the Reina Sofia to the El Grecos at the Cathedral of Toledo to the intricate geometric designs that adorn the Granada's formerly Muslim palace, the Alhambra.
Nice.
And quite a bit beyond that. One thing that becomes clear as you travel in places that are older than our own little baby Yoda of a country is that religion is one of the most prominent, obvious, and annoying themes of art.
Yes.
It is a trend that goes back well before the Renaissance of the 14 and 1500s, which is what I always picture when I think of religious art. Mm-hmm. It goes back before the Dark Ages.
Yes.
It goes back before the Byzantine, the Roman, the Hellenistic periods, before the Indian, Chinese, and Japanese Buddhist art. There are literally Stone Age cave paintings going back tens of thousands of years depicting supernatural dipshittery. Basically, religious art is as old as art and idiots exist. So, if you've ever taken an art history class, which Uncle Mark, I'm sure you've dropped out of one or two of those.
I got through quite a few as well.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
that's good. You will have been taught, and likely no longer remember, that there are specific tropes in various movements of religious art. There are common symbols and iconographic messages that snooty art professors, that I'm totally just making up in my mind because I never took an art history class, will insist that you have to understand if you're to fully grasp the scope of the art that you're looking at.
Mm-hmm. They're not
Here's
wrong.
the thing. Yeah, I know. Hey, here's the thing. I know. I literally think it's very interesting to know all that stuff. Mm-hmm. To know that white often indicates purity, while black can mean death and mourning. To know that the hand positions indicate that the Buddha is in different modes, or that a lion in Christian art can mean strength, but if it's carrying a banner, then it might refer to the tribe of Judah. But if it has wings, then it's probably referencing the Apostle Mark. Mm-hmm. Incidentally, if the lion is setting down an inexpensive Pinot Grigio to get up to go for a pee for the third time in 2 hours, then it's likely referencing Uncle Mark.
Directly referencing Uncle Mark. Yes, that's exactly right.
So there you go. It can be a useful shorthand to know all the little secret codes that artists have used throughout the ages in their religious art. But on this latest trip to Spain, I realized that for most of my art viewing life, I've been looking at religious art through their lens. I've been trying to see the meaning that they see in it, much like how we were trained to read the holy books by ignoring the glaring logical holes and obvious immorality contained therein. So this time, as I walked through the great galleries, I started to ask different questions. What is this art saying to me, Mr. Atheist Guy? What is being presented to me on its face without any imagined professors telling me what I should be seeing? Because here's the really interesting thing about all art. It's really not about the subject matter. Artists, from painters to writers to actors to dancers, use their subject matter to reveal something deeper about the human condition. Whether they want to or not, artists are telling us something about the time they live in, the anxieties and concerns of that moment in history, and they're telling us about the people who commission the art and what they want to see and what they don't want to see, and they're revealing things about themselves. They're showing us something about who they are, what's important to them, and what their deepest fears and hopes might be.
And that they do not understand the anatomy of cats. That is also very important.
Oh, there is so much anatomy that they don't understand, including human anatomy. Man, there was one painting at the Prado that was a painting of Jesus. It was they don't allow you to take pictures at the Prado of of any of their art, but that was the one I had to sneak a picture of because it was a Jesus that had abs that literally went above the nipples. They went all the way up to his neck.
Wow.
Neck abs.
He was a strong carpenter.
It wasn't always well understood, even by those who were really studying. Anyway, I wanted to just show you fellas a few pieces of art that I saw on my trip and chat with you briefly about what we see in them from our perspective rather than from the Christian one. Does that make sense?
I shall try. I did have quite a bit of art history, and I did enjoy kind of getting the decoder ring.
Yeah.
The key means this, the winged this, I did enjoy that, but I also believe that art should be a completely subjective experience per viewer. So let's play the game, Alex.
Yeah, I think we should. Let's start with Diego Velázquez's Christ Crucified. This is from 1632.
It's wonderful. It's beautiful.
It's gorgeous, and it's considered one of the sort of landmark paintings of the time.
Yeah, I would say so.
It is Christ on the cross. Very little else. He's against a black background. He's got the 4 nails instead of 3. He went with a nail for each foot, which is that's an artistic choice. Here's what I wanted to get to.
That's a generous Roman. Who's willing to do 4 instead of 3. So
I'm going to do you a favor.
Count that as a win.
Kid.
Count that as a win.
So I was looking at this painting, and here's what occurred to me. I see no pain in this painting. There's a man who should be experiencing insane amounts of pain. He's got the crown of thorns. He's got a nail in each hand, a nail in each foot. He's been stabbed in the side.
Yeah.
He's bleeding. He's got a very cute little diaper on. And I don't see even a shred of pain. Which to me is a really to me that indicates. I mean, he doesn't look like he's wincing. He doesn't look like he's contorted. He almost looks like if you take away the blood and you imagine that you're looking at him from above, he could just be relaxing on a cross.
He could also be very, very stoned.
Or just fully dead.
Or just fully dead.
But, as we've examined saints and things over time, the idea, there's a much beloved Christian concept that martyrs smiled through their pain or endured the pain without wincing. That's very important to the Christian. And I don't know, we're not necessarily looking at this from a Christian perspective, but that's very important to kind of the Christian mystique of martyrdom, right?
Well, and that's what I'm talking about here. Like, one of the things that's interesting to me is the mindset that says that a man could go through all of this and then just kind of be looking down like, this will be over at some point.
Well, and I also would just so it's worth pointing out if listeners haven't pulled this up to look at it. It's an extremely realistic painting.
And we'll put links to these show notes.
It is beautiful. The anatomy is excellent. The execution is excellent. The light, especially.
Yeah.
The sort of kind of chiaroscuro of the time is extraordinarily good. It's a masterwork.
Aside from the kind of perfectly placed linen wrapped around his genitalia and his waist, the blood dripping from his wounds, it looks incredibly real. He looks incredibly real. It's kind of this amazing way of anchoring this moment in the real world. Like the artist, it seems to me, is trying to tell you that from his perspective, this happened. Like this is what it would have really looked like.
Yeah.
And yet, again, I can't, and I hear what you're saying, and yet he's just on a black background. There's nothing behind him. There's no world in this world. And he's just chilling.
But it's not abstract.
Yeah.
No, not at all. It's
no. There's nothing abstract about it. I just think it's very interesting take on Jesus. And speaking of takes on Jesus, I want to move on now to...
I was going to say, it's also an incredibly restrained amount of blood for Catholic depictions of the crucifixion.
And before we move on, I want to know what diet Jesus is on. Is that keto?
Right.
Damn.
Yeah. It's the sweating blood out of every pore diet. Yeah. It works great.
I'm going to download that app.
I'm going to move on now to an El Greco. Domenikos Theotokopoulos was his real name, so that's why the Spaniards decided just to never say his name.
Call him the Greek.
Just give him the Greek. Call him the Greek. This is the Adoration of the Shepherds. And this one, the lighting is particularly astounding in this. El Greco had this very weird style towards the end of his life. This may be his last painting. And it's of the birth of Jesus, and Jesus is fucking glowing like a motherfucker, and everybody is uplit, and it's spooky and weird.
It does have kind of a horror movie. It's like looking into the briefcase in Pulp Fiction, and maybe that's what was in there was Jesus. But I personally, I love as a person who works in the arts and is kind of familiar with all this stuff. I love El Greco. I think that
I do too.
His depictions of the human form, etc., were so radical at the time that they, obviously he was a huge influence on Salvador Dali, who came along far, far later. Right. But, and we'll talk about another person who was kind of maybe the father of surrealism in a minute. But this is kind of surrealism, and the attenuation of the human form I think is extraordinary, and the color is also something that just is...
his colors were crazy. Like it's funny because there were some early El Grecos there as well that were very sort of dark portraits of
noblemen,
Spanish
and
gentlemen, whatever. And then he gets into this stuff, and he's got this one guy who apparently was probably his son, was the model for it, but he looks like a Frankenstein's monster towering over the Christ child.
Right.
And Mary looks very calm, but everybody else looks pretty freaked out about this guy, including the angels floating above, some of whom seem to be like trying to block their eyes from the brightness of the Christ child.
Well, they've got very sensitive little peens, those babies. They should be careful about how radioactive, how many rads Jesus puts off in an hour.
Boy, speaking of little peens, check out the junk on Jesus. That is...
There's nothing there.
No. I can't zoom in that far.
I feel like it might be a Jesus. I'm not sure.
I can't zoom in that far, but that really is just the software that the court put on my computer. So anyway, we should probably move on before I say too much.
The point I was trying to make with each of these is that El Greco's depicting a moment that we all know. It's the birth of Christ. It's supposed to be the most important birth that has ever occurred on the face of the earth. And he chose to go real weird with it.
Yeah, it's very the elongated, the elongated limbs and fingers.
Yeah,
the tableau, the way it's laid out.
Supernatural moment, and maybe this is the way he decided to The perspective. Your perspective is very low in the frame.
Yeah,
it's a very long, tall picture. I've seen this. It's huge, right? It's very strange.
It's quite enormous.
Yeah,
and like I said, that uplighting just creates this weird shadows on everybody's faces. It really does look like they're looking
nobody
at
else
an
was
alien.
doing this sort of thing, as far as I know. This was a very radical kind of departure.
Right. Yeah. One more thing. There's one that I want to close out with because it's sort of the pièce de résistance of my entire trip. But I did want to talk about in the Prado, they have a room devoted to one Hieronymus Bosch.
Yes.
Apparently the Spaniards aren't able to say his name either, so they just call him El Bosco.
No, nobody's able to say his name, actually. Hieronymus.
When I was in junior high school, when we first learned about Hieronymus Bosch, I thought Hieronymus was an adjective.
Of all of the Bosches, this one was the most Hieronymus.
You know what? It should be. This is fucking Hieronymus.
I'm making it happen.
Exactly. You heard it here first, folks. Go out and use it in a sentence today. The first Bosch that I wanted to talk about is the Table of the Seven Deadly Sins. It's literally a table, and Andrea and I stared at this thing, and each of the seven deadly sins is named, which is nice on the thing, but named in a language that I don't know.
Is it gula?
So, for instance,
is that what it
gluttony is gula.
Yeah.
And so we challenged ourselves to look at each of the panels and figure out which of the deadly sins we thought was being depicted. And to be perfectly honest, when you look at it without without his perspective, what you see is just people fucking trying to live their goddamn lives.
Yeah, I'm kind of jumping. I'm jumping ahead, looking at several of the seven deadly sins that you've posted. If you didn't tell me these, other than the one where maybe they're eating a little too much, if you didn't say that these were part of the seven deadly sins, it looks like normal scenes from life, except a guy's got a table on his head in one.
Yeah. The only one I can easily identify is gluttony.
Yeah. The rest of them, and even that one, I'm just like, I don't know. There's one that looks like a woman facing away from us with a lampshade on her head, but I think that's supposed to be just a veil. And that one's Pride. Well, why is that Pride? And why is it so bad? There is a little demon.
Oh, I see the demon. He's holding the mirror. He's holding the mirror for her.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So okay, but it's just a woman looking in a mirror, for Christ's sake. These are the things that we're taught are supposed to be the worst thing.
Okay, what is with the guy with the table on his head?
Well, that's wrath. And
a fight seems to have broken out.
Yeah, it's very funny. There are three figures in the wrath panel. There's two guys who are wielding knives, one woman who seems to be dancing with one of them, and one of them has a table on his head.
I think she's trying to stop them from fighting. I think she's intervening. So too.
Yeah, she's stepping in. They're both dumpy and weird looking, and it's a very funny panel.
There's a
and I like it a lot.
Hat on the ground, which is crazy.
but sometimes you want a little bit more protection than a felt hat can offer, so you put a small end table.
An Nvidia, which means envy.
That's right.
It looks like just a normal street scene of neighbors having a chat.
Yeah, there's a couple dogs chilling. Yeah. There's a guy holding a bird. You don't necessarily see any, there's...
And they're kind of pastoral and it's like unmenacing.
It's like they're, if you know Bruegel, like the Bruegel paintings, which were literally just scenes of rural life, right? They were just peasants dancing and carrying on, but it wasn't really an indictment of peasant life. It was
I personally have never been a fan of Bruegel. I thought he was way too Hieronymus.
He was borderline Hieronymus.
Listen, there was a Bruegel in the next room over from the Bosch room that was astounding, though. Look up, it was called something like The Triumph of Death or Death something. If you guys, I don't have this pulled up for you guys, but it's amazing. It is Game of Thrones.
Perfect.
There is an army of skeletons charging in. It's terrifying.
Oh yeah,
and
that
crazy.
was about the plague. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, anywho, what was amazing to me about the seven deadly sins table is mostly just that it's like, yeah, we're just looking at normal life, and he's trying to pathologize it into the literal worst things that humans can do.
Well, and
that's kind of the whole kit and caboodle with these people.
Here's what's funny about Hieronymus Bosch, though, is he was the father of nightmares. Like, Bosch, if he wanted to depict something fucked up, it was not a problem for him. So, well, just like three people standing in a little house, it does not look that nightmarish to me.
Right, exactly. And with that, we'll use that as our segue into the final piece that I wanted to talk about, Bosch's The Garden of Earthly Delights.
Yeah.
It is a triptych that folds up if you ever wanted to, which you would be put in jail if you tried to do.
It makes it easier to steal, so give it a shot.
Yeah, exactly. You who knows? People stole all kinds of art. This one has... So the three panels, there's the one on the left, which is the Garden of Eden. Mm-hmm. There's the middle big panel, which is the Garden of Earthly Delights. That's the now. That's I guess this phase of the world. And then there's the right panel, which is hell.
And boy, is it hell.
And all of these panels are, let me see if I can come up with the word, crazy.
Yeah.
All of these panels are insane. The one on the far left, our Garden of Eden, is meant to be a sort of beautiful utopia with critters all over the place, many of which he just invented out of his little cuckoo
Absolutely.
brain.
And let's place this in time. This is about a 500-year, little over 500 years old.
Yeah. So this is from early 1500s, maybe 1500, 1505, somewhere in that range. So amazing. This predates, like you were saying, this predates actual surrealism by a damn sight.
Yeah, by
and
hundreds
nobody could like how he came up with any of this stuff is astounding.
Astounding how he came up with this and was not declared a witch. To me, is really kind of crazy, right? Because he could have been gobbled up.
Because invented critters is one thing. Like a dog that only has two front legs and a tail is one thing. But if you move on to the next panel, which is the Earthly Delights panel.
Yeah.
It's bonkers.
It's bonkers. And it's very sexualized. It's it's a lot of nudity and very, very sexualized behavior.
Yeah. Is anybody wearing clothes? I don't think anybody's wearing clothes.
I see a guy in a red poncho right in the middle.
Yeah, a couple people are wearing berries.
But he's probably just like a healthcare provider.
Right.
So...
And you guys, there's online. There's a wonderful high res zoom in and check it out version of this, and you can listen to a very David Attenborough type person talking about each of the things. He doesn't ever mention things like the guy that's bent over and the other guy is using his butthole as a flower vase.
Yeah, I was just looking at that. Weird. I was drawn to that.
Weird. It's very strange.
Yeah.
But he does talk about like giant birds in the picture and a bunch of men riding around in a circle on beasts, various beasts, goats, deer, whatever, with a bunch of women corralled in a hot tub in the middle.
Yeah. There are black people. It is out of control.
Right, exactly.
Completely out of control.
And this was, of course, Bosch's idea of the bad things, the sin.
That's right.
Which everybody seems to be having a great time.
It looks like if Burning Man was held someplace nice.
Right. Yeah.
Where there was water and grass, right?
Yeah. There are like these really crazy floating boats that are cool. There's all sorts of stuff. There's one guy doing a handstand in the water, holding but his hands are holding his junk and his legs are... Everybody's literally just kind of having a great time.
Yeah.
Which leads us, of course... to hell.
Yeah.
Hell, where a pair of ears will wield a knife at you, where half of a torso with two arms that turn into tree trunks being supported by boats is a jail cell
We know it's hell because on top of that structure is a giant bagpipe. And,
yes, exactly.
And then one of the other largest figures in the image is a gigantic hurdy-gurdy.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely. Why not?
So there's music. There's music in hell.
And there's a bird that's now eating people and shitting them out through a chamber pot. And of course, the anal play is out of control. It is everywhere in hell. Hell is all about bum stuff. So it's just, it's one of those things where Terry Gilliam would look at it and be like, dude, a little over the top.
Yeah. There's those disembodied ears with a knife sticking out from in between them, and it's a very phallic nature.
Some stabby comedy shop ears.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, I guess what occurred to me as I sort of stared in awe and wonder at this bizarre work, clearly the work of a mad genius.
Yeah.
What I realized was that the story that he has been told his whole life and that he clearly took on as real is fucked up.
Yeah.
You think?
The story itself, the one that everybody believed about the most human thing in the world, which is sex, or or just human curiosity about, what happens if I stick a flower in my bum? I don't know. Maybe I'll try it.
Well, it's also you're right. And it's the Christian terror of the natural world.
Yeah.
When to us, both the first and the middle panel look a little weird. It's kind of a party that you should be told in advance what's going on.
Right. Yeah.
But even if you showed up and you weren't ready, you'd be like, okay, give me a few minutes. I can get into this.
Yeah.
It looks kind of amazing and wonderful, and it's people experiencing nature in some way via each other and via the literal natural world.
And nobody seems to be getting hurt by anybody
It's a
else.
beautiful day.
Nothing's going against anybody's own volition. So what I finally realized as I stared at this was the only people who belong in hell are the pricks that are standing in judgment over these people having a good time.
Yeah.
Like it is the onlooker who is looking at this center panel and thinking something horrible is happening.
Yeah.
That needs to really reevaluate themselves.
Yeah. Can you imagine
Not
this
the
used to
people having a
scare
great
the
time.
shit out of people? Like when this was opened on Easter, because a lot of these things that are multi-paneled, they would close. All but for a certain time of year, the Feast of St. Stephen or something, right? Then they would be opened and the peasants could view it. And this probably ruined people's sleep for the rest of their lives.
Probably.
Truly.
Literally, like you see some of these images and you're just like, oh my God. I'm not sure what kind of brain came up with this, but I'm pretty sure that now that it exists, we're all doomed.
Yeah, but just from an art perspective, he is probably the father of surrealism. So swing and a miss there, Hieronymus, but good job.
It's definitely worth looking at. We'll put links to everything in the show notes and definitely check it all out. But
yep.
I just think I think what we can do is look at these and take their perspective as our jumping off point, and then ask the real questions, which are like, what's actually going on here?
Yeah, and remember that art is a reflection of those who pay for it. So the money in this period of time, the only money there was outside of a few just rich individuals was in the church. So that's what the art was about, right? Yep. So there you go.
So when you go forth, ladies and gentlemen, friends, nieces and nephews, out into the world and regard the art, don't take their word for it. Enjoy it on your terms and let it teach you your lessons.
And if you steal this, we'll give you a P.O. box number and no questions asked.
Exactly.
All right.
Let's move on. Dear uncles.
Hello.
We do this weekly. We as we said earlier, we go out of our way to make sure it happens.
Yep.
Hell or high water.
Yeah.
Or a little bit of snow.
to give you all out there an ad-free product.
Yes, indeed. And some of you care to kick in a few bucks just to make sure that we keep going and to show your appreciation. And we sure do appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So we have some folks that we'd like to thank on that front. So thanks this week go to Alec, to Hypatia,
Oh.
to Brian, and I owe a heaven to Nat.
Oh, hey, Nat.
I was unprepared last week. I was jet lagged and crazed, so that's
Thank you for your patience, Nat. But
Yes,
I think it's probably about to be rewarded.
I don't think so. Here we go. Here's the thing, Nat. We spend a lot of time on this show trying to come up with what a version of heaven might look like. It can't just be sitting on clouds blissfully playing golden harps, because that is obviously stupid. I also don't think that it can be a big hedonistic orgy where everybody is both excited and relieved at all times. We can't be too reductive with heaven, because if we're going to spend eternity somewhere doing something, then that idea has got to be huge. Because too much of anything is just that. Too much. So, I tried to come up with a heaven for you, Nat, that was enormous. Something so vast and expansive, even given eternity, you could never grow bored or weary of it. I searched for the vocabulary to describe a heaven that might actually, honest to God, be good. But I couldn't come up with one, so you get ham. That's right, Nat. I'm sending you to ham heaven. I hope you're not vegan. Look, I don't want to
Or
be
Muslim.
that... Right, exactly.
Or Jewish. Oh, well.
Who cares? I don't want to be that guy who goes on a trip and then that's all he can talk about for 3 months. So I'm really trying to tone it down to 2 months. Anyway, I don't know if you've ever been to Spain, but the ham there is a delicacy that is prized throughout the world. A treat that can fetch incredible prices because of its rich, subtle flavors and beautiful texture. The Spanish ham of note, Jamón Ibérico. That Iberian delight that is derived only from black Iberian breed of pig, or pigs that are at least 50% of that breed, if you want to get technical. Now, this is heaven, so I'm not going to skimp on you. You're getting the good stuff. Black label, 100% Jamón Ibérico de Bellota, which, Uncle Doug, do you know what Bellota is in Spanish?
Bellota. Pelota or Bellota?
Bellota.
Bellota, no.
Oh, Bellota, that's right.
Yeah.
That's acorn ham, baby.
Ooh.
And it is the pure dope. Let me tell you something. This ham starts out as adorable little piglets who, as soon as they are weaned, are fattened on barley and maize.
Wow.
I would say corn, but Wikipedia said maize, and I don't know if there's actually a difference there, so I'm just going with maize right now. Anyway, after several weeks of grain chubbying, the pigs are set free.
Is grain chubbying a technical term? I'm sorry to interrupt.
It is now.
Okay.
I invented that word, but I don't see why we shouldn't all use it.
It's making me hungry.
Yes, indeed. The pigs are then set free in the oak forests on the border of Spain and Portugal. Doesn't that sound nice?
Yeah.
They roam around the forests, eating mainly acorns and chestnuts, olives sometimes, roots, whatever they can find. It's the high life.
Yeah.
Hog heaven, if you will. But it's not really hog heaven, because it's your heaven. And the hogs are about to die.
Oh.
They gather them bitches up, slaughter them, and then lop off the legs, because that's the hammiest part, apparently. And then they salt and dry those legs whole and for at least 12 months. And voila, or whatever the Spanish equivalent to voila is. It's ham! Yes, and not just any ham. Rich, buttery ham with a depth of flavor that will knock your socks off. You can actually taste the nuttiness that comes from the acorns. But before you can really taste it, you'll have to carve it from the leg, which is actually really hard, and people lose fingers and all parts of hands and stuff in the process. But we'll get you a really sharp knife and maybe even one of those chainmail gloves so that you don't hurt yourself, which I literally saw a guy using to cut the ham off of a leg. And that's it. Congratulations, Nat. on your ham. And enjoy your heaven for all eternity. Amen.
There are some people who would look forward to that heaven. I'm among them myself. Way to go, Nat.
Yeah. I've eaten. I have tasted of the habugo myself, and I think I could survive in that heaven for the first 15 minutes. So, congrats.
I literally tired of that ham so quickly. It's everywhere. It is so ubiquitous in Spain, and it's delicious a couple times.
But you probably still have the grease in your mouth. It just cannot be. You cannot get rid of it. So, if you want to join the ranks of the gnats of the world and go to a cured meat heaven of your own kind, you can just go to howtoheretic.com, go to the support us link, click it. That's the Patreon. Put all the money you've got in there. Hit daily, whatever you got to do, and support us that way. And if you can't do it, or even if you can, please give us 5 stars anywhere you can. iTunes, Stitcher. It just helps the good people of the world find their way to our little manger. Right? Let's move on. Well, Dan.
Yes?
We've talked about this before, but remember when we were kids? I think we talked about it when we were doing Exodus with you. There was a film that was kind of horrific called The Neverending Story. And then that was bafflingly followed up by The Neverending Story Part 2, where all the unanswered questions about the freaky sperm dragon were also not answered. So
you're going to get us emails by shitting on that show.
Well, somebody sent me an email when we talked about it last time that dragon is in a museum. Was it, or did you say that? It's
no,
a museum
I said
in Germany.
You can go and visit that ugly, terrifying white dog dragon.
Those special effects didn't hold up in the moment.
No,
but it was cute.
They were obsolete live. So anyway, Doug, The Neverending Story, Part 2, Genesis, the Regenesising, The Revenge of Begat.
Let's close it out.
Yeah, like so many biblical and biblically themed stories, I think the real true impetus should be, let's just get this the fuck over with.
Right.
So, yes, Genesis Part 2, we're going to get through this. We're going to get through the second half of the book of Genesis today and be done with it forever.
Hooray.
When last we left off, we had managed to slog our way through roughly the first half of the book of Genesis. We covered creation, the fall, the flood, the Tower of Babel, some impressive lifespan, some polytheism, and a whole lot of incest.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah.
Well, look, Doug, when there are only 4 people and you want to make more, what are you going to do?
There's only 4 people unless you want to walk over there where there's apparently another city, which happens over and over.
Right. All of a sudden, right?
Yeah.
Just shh.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys just shh.
So we managed to get through the primeval history of the book, comprising the first 11 chapters, and put a pretty sizable dent in the ancestral history, comprising chapters 12 through 50.
Oh, fuck.
I know.
Really?
Yeah, it's a brutal book.
I'm so glad I was sick.
Oh, my God. We ended with the reveal that Abraham, formerly Abram, and Sarah, formerly Sarai, were definitely from different mothers, but the same father.
Skun-dun-dun.
So, now listener Jason wrote us to give some context on the names and their meanings. Abram in Hebrew it means many or multitude, which is a strange name for a person.
Yes.
But Abraham means father of a multitude, so that makes some kind of sense. I don't know why you just don't call him Abraham from the beginning or father of the multitude from the beginning, but that's not my problem.
Yeah.
Sarai means princess, and apparently so does Sarah, so great, thanks. Incidentally, Isaac means laughter because I guess his story is so much fun.
Really? It means laughter?
Yeah.
I know. I'm going to laugh at it.
So Sarah, when she heard she was going to get pregnant, laughed. And so that's where that comes from.
Isaac is like, hey, Dad, what are you doing? What's that? Come on, you don't mean that, do you, Dad?
Jason has apparently, our listener Jason has apparently read this book in excess of 50 times.
Why?
Whatever
Jason?
Stop, Jason.
Calm down. What are you doing?
You've done enough.
He was on a moon base, and this was the only book there was.
Have you heard of the Twilight series? Come on, man.
Yeah, anything.
So, just to recap,
Danielle Steele wrote a wonderful series of books you might enjoy.
50
quite a bit
Shades of anything but this.
Quite a bit of begatting as well. So.
I think after half of 50 Shades of Grey, I might go back to Genesis. After 25 Shades of Grey. So just to recap, Abraham raped his servant Hagar, whose son Ishmael would go on to be the progenitor of Muhammad and therefore Islam.
Yeah.
And then Isaac with his half-sister, who would go on to be the progenitor of Israel, and eventually Jesus and Christianity. Just worth noting that the provenance of the three great monotheistic religions are rape and incest.
Doy. I could have told you that without
very on brand. Very on brand. Yeah.
The first 20 chapters of this book have taken us from creation of the universe to Abraham. The next 30 chapters will take us from Abraham to Joseph, his great-grandson. So
30 chapters?
Yeah, let's just say the narrative slows down considerably at this point.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you don't.
No.
From the galloping clip it was at prior.
Well, yeah, it would sail through like 800-year-old people's lives. So
Yes.
I think it was going quick for a minute.
Not a lot happens in an 800-year lifespan.
In order to prevent a mass exodus of listeners from this show, I'm going to stomp on the gas pedal pretty hard here.
Or guest hosts. Or co-hosts.
So let's pick up the narrative in chapter 21, where the very old Sarah finally conceives a son, and they name him Isaac.
Yay.
Sarah decides that Hagar and Ishmael need to get kicked out of the house because I guess she's a good guy. Here's what's crazy. Ishmael only exists because Sarah demanded that Abraham rape his slave.
Right.
And because Sarah and Abraham are half-brother and sister, Ishmael is not only her stepson, but her nephew that she's kicking out. So
And she's her own grandpa.
Exactly. Chapter 22 is the story of the sacrifice of Isaac. This story is so well known that I will not dwell on it, except to say that it's a very short chapter, and the actual taking of Isaac, tying him up, and nearly gutting him takes only the first 16 verses. It's a very dry clinical recitation story, almost like a police report.
That's what the Bible is just. You go for thousands of pages or words without anything,
Right.
and then you finally get to a story you recognize, and it is 13 sentences, and then it's done.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And so
God wrestling with who was it? Jacob on the edge of the river. It just happens.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and we will get to that.
Yeah.
Any hesitation or reluctance on the part of Abraham is editorial. And by the way, no mention whatever of Isaac's perspective on all of this.
No, who cares?
Sarah dies at 127 years old.
Oh, so young?
So young. Now, except for the fact that she is one of the most developed characters in the Bible, female characters in the Bible, we don't know much about Sarah, but what we do know is that she was a terrible person. So, sayonara, Sarah.
Well, she fit right in. She fit right into
exactly.
the culture of the time.
Servants of Abraham return to Mesopotamia to find a wife for Isaac that's not a dirty Canaanite. They settle on Rebekah. They don't know how old she is, but she's definitely a virgin. And in a very unexpected twist, Rebekah's mother and brother ask her for her consent to marry her off.
Weird.
Yeah.
What?
What's going on?
I know. It's weird. She says yes and returns to Canaan and marries Isaac. Rebekah, who initially was barren, then gives birth to twins, Esau and Jacob.
You know, everybody's literally barren until they have kids.
Is that true?
Every woman in the world is barren until they get pregnant.
Doesn't that mean unable to have children?
Well, no. I mean, clearly she wasn't barren because she did have children.
It's Schrodinger's fetus.
Yeah.
Okay, Jacob, by the way, means deceiver, and that's what we call foreshadowing.
Skun-dun-dun.
Again, shout out to listener Jason.
Also, like, people would name their child Deceiver. I know, like, you're a baby. You don't know.
Exactly.
This little shit, I thought he was coming one way, he went the
This is
other.
my son John and my other son Failure. After a hard days of work in the fields, Esau enters Jacob's tent and begs for something to eat, to which Jacob agrees for the low, low price of his birthright, which Esau happily trades for some bread and lentils.
Yep.
Chapter 26 sees a famine in the land, causing Isaac to take his household to the land of Gerar. And for the third time in this cursed book, someone tells their wife to pretend to be their sister. Isaac tells Rebekah to pretend to be his sister instead of his wife. And for the third time, the king of the city finds out and is pissed. And notwithstanding his significant wealth, they expel him from the city.
I still maintain it's a good subterfuge. It's a good idea. I
suppose.
It's a great trick.
Now, neither Jacob's stealing of Esau's birthright nor Esau's marriage to a non-Hebrew seem to matter at all, because chapter 27 begins with an ailing Isaac begging Esau to hunt him some tasty venison so he can eat it and then pronounce his final blessing on him. So in spite of everything, Esau was going to inherit all the blessings of his father anyway, even though he sold his birthright. But while Esau is off hunting, Rebekah, without a moment's hesitation, hatches a plan that we've talked about to trick Isaac into giving his blessing to Jacob. She sends him off to make some stew while she finds some furs for him to wear in his presence. Because, you see, Isaac is essentially blind, and Esau was covered in hair like Robin Williams, while Jacob was as hairless and smooth as Jeff Bezos. So the subterfuge works, and mistaking Jacob for Esau, Isaac gives all the blessings to the wrong son. When Esau returns and finds out what has happened, he plans to kill Jacob.
And as we've learned, tricks count.
Yes.
Even as a kid, I was like, how hairy do you have to be?
Right.
That either a sheep or a goat.
Literally, he used to walk into his father's tent like...
Yeah, that is a fur-bearing animal. That is like... Their fur is harvested to make everything.
I know,
that's
exactly.
The stupidest. I'm sorry.
It's so stupid.
I've detected a plot hole. But anyway, go on.
So while out hunting for a wife, Jacob has a dream. It's the famous Jacob's ladder that angels are using to scale up and down from heaven. That's kind of it. In this dream, God
there's kind of no anything to that, right?
There's not really any metaphor to it. It's just kind of there.
Until they invent Jacob's escalator, which will be cool.
And then Trump.
So if you were just thinking, it's been a while since rape and incest made an appearance, I give you chapter 29. Jacob sees the youngest daughter of his uncle Laban, named Rachel, the brother of his mother, and falls for her. He promises 7 years of service to earn the hand of Rachel, but on his wedding night it turns out that Laban had sneakily put his oldest daughter Leah in Jacob's bed, and without noticing, he consummated the marriage with the wrong sister, also known as rape.
Yeah, because I generally don't notice who's in the bed with me.
I just stumble in drunk and fuck whatever's there.
Old Testament
That's
antics.
a half-truth.
Classic.
And again, tricks count.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Laban demands 7 more years of service for Rachel, and then he can have both sisters. Jacob fulfills the additional years and gets Rachel, but wouldn't you know it, she's barren.
Oh.
Just to be clear, Abraham, Isaac, and now Jacob have all married barren women who eventually bear children. So this is either some heavy-handed metaphor or Aaron Brockovich needs to test the water supply. Leah, the older sister of Jacob, or the older sister who Jacob apparently hates, still bears him sons Reuben, Simeon, and Levi. Chapter 30 might as well be its own channel on Pornhub. A distraught, childless Rachel sends her servant to be raped by Jacob multiple times and bears him two more sons. Not to be outdone, Leah sends her servant in to be raped by Jacob multiple times, bearing him 2 more sons. By the way, weirdly, both of these sex slaves have names, Bilhah and Zilpah.
Yeah.
Finally, Rachel has a son and calls him Joseph. Oh, chapter 32. Jacob decides to return and try to beg forgiveness from Esau, who's not having it and sets out with 400 men to kill Jacob.
Right.
Jacob prepares a gift for Esau to try and temper his anger. The gift consists of 200 she-goats, 20 he-goats, 200 ewes, 20 rams, 30 milch camels and their colts, 40 kine, 10 bulls, 20 she-asses, and 10 foals. Which honestly...
No he-asses? Where are the he-asses?
It seems like more trouble than it's worth.
What do you get for the guy that has everything? It's like... we all face this conundrum, around Christmas or a birthday. It's like, a pen, a watch, I don't know.
She-goat.
How about 20?
Yeah.
How about 40 kine? So while he's waiting to confront Esau, he, all of a sudden, is wrestling with someone all night long. Yeah. This is the angel that Mark referenced.
You know how you're chilling? You're like on the way to somewhere, and then you're just wrestling with the dude.
Bump into a dude. And
You're like, oh, let's wrestle.
Let's grapple.
Oh,
It happens.
That's a grapple.
The wrestling's
It happens
on.
so suddenly in the narrative that if you just blinked for half a second, you could completely miss it.
Honestly, I had to go like, wait, whoa, was that?
Yeah.
So as the sun rises, neither Jacob nor the stranger have the upper hand. The match finally comes to an end when they touch in the hollow of each other's thigh. Okay.
How do you do that?
Don't know.
And this
I think Uncle Mark
the
knows all about
origin
that.
of all BYU sex, not sex. Yeah. You're docking, you're floating, you're BYU float. You're
Can I just touch the hollow of your thigh,
yeah.
please?
Not anymore. Thanks, me too. Jacob demands a blessing from this.
I don't even know what that means.
It's about time Me Too caught up to the Old Testament.
Okay, keep going.
Jacob demands a blessing from this stranger who renames him Israel, meaning God contends.
Because if you wrestle someone, they get to name you.
I guess.
Well, also, if you
love that
wait,
idea.
shouldn't you have to win?
No, shut up.
Yeah, I
Like,
agree.
shouldn't
name
the
is
winner get to
George.
rename something? It's like we fight to a draw and get to rename each other. The fuck is that?
I would love /hate to live in the society where that was just the way of things. Like, if I can wrestle somebody to the ground, I can call him Nancy from now on.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Hello,
so
Jacob. It's Nancy now. Don't even ask. I had a crazy day.
Did you
I got
wrestle
jumped
somebody?
I got jumped by the river.
So in chapter 33, Esau finally confronts Jacob, but overcome with love, hugs and kisses him and accepts him back into the land.
Aw.
So the answer to the question, who are the good guys in this book? Apparently Esau is the only good person in this book. Chapter 34 begins with some more rape. Hamor the Hivite rapes Dinah, the daughter of Leah. This rape would kick off a cycle of violence and mayhem that lasts...
Allegedly.
And the word they use is defile. The cycle of violence kicked off by this rape will last to this day. So Hamor demanded that Dinah now marry his son Shechem. Dinah's brothers Simeon and Levi initially agreed to the marriage if every male in the city is circumcised. For some reason, Hamor agrees, and while the men are all convalescing, Simeon and Levi kill them all. Not only do they kill the men, they sack the city and take all the women and children as sex slaves.
It's a great ploy.
Yeah.
Wow.
This
You thought it
will be-
couldn't get worse than getting the tip of your dick cut off.
This will become a well-exercised muscle going forward. So, the sons of Jacob by 4 different women are as follows, and not in order: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher. These would go on to be the 12 tribes of Israel. Later on, Joseph's sons Manasseh and Ephraim are added to the list. Not clear how that still equals 12, but okay.
Shut up. Right. It's new math.
So from this
It's
point
Common
on,
Core. You don't understand it.
from this point on, the whole rest of the book is the story of Joseph, his colorful coat, and his exploits in Egypt. This story is very, very boring, so let's just recap it.
So let's make a musical about it.
Yeah, exactly. Joseph was the apple of his father's eye, prompting his brothers to sell him into slavery and fake his death.
As you do.
As you do.
That's what they did with you, Doug, isn't it?
I wish. Jesus.
Well,
Sold into
it's more
slavery would have been
complicated
such a
than that,
step
but
up for me.
We'll cover it another time.
Being eventually sold into Egypt, Joseph rises through the ranks mostly because of his ability to interpret dreams. He is eventually called upon to interpret the dream of the Pharaoh, which he does. The interpretation is that there will be 7 years of plenty followed by 7 years of famine. He convinces Pharaoh to store up 1/5 of everything for the impending famine. Impressed, the Pharaoh puts Joseph in charge of this effort, making him one of the most powerful people in Egypt.
Until they have $100 billion stored
Exactly.
away for
And this
no reason.
story led United States Cabinet Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Ben Carson, to publicly state that the pyramids of Giza were built by Joseph to store grain.
If only there was some way we could see inside.
Yeah.
Well.
Their enormous storage capacity.
Oh, my God.
Again, I can't think of a less useful storage shape than a pyramid, but that's me.
Well, an
Well,
upside
at least-
down one would be good.
At least a hollow one would be good, but they're not.
I mean, look in your closet. How many storage boxes do you have right now shaped like a pyramid? But that's just
More
me.
than
I'm just
6.
saying it's a funnel. If gravity worked the other way, it'd be great for like just releasing some out.
Stand
Then
corrected.
you got a hopper. And then you
that's
can
what I'm
drink.
saying.
Come
There
on.
you go.
Yeah.
So a quick side note, chapter 38 has the famous story of Judah's children, and Onan. Committed some unspecified crime for which God just fucking kills him.
Right. Just
So Onan
straight up
just
offs the
God
bitch.
says boom. So Onan takes his wife, but fearing getting her pregnant, spills his load on the floor, prompting God to kill him too. So, don't masturbate.
The sperm is sacred.
So as the story unfolds, there is intrigue, incest, and deception. The famine arrives and becomes so bad that it hits Canaan, forcing the remaining sons of Jacob to go to Egypt and barter for food. And wouldn't you know it, they end up at the feet of Joseph, although he doesn't reveal his identity for a little while. He toys them
Because he's covered himself in camel hair.
He toys with them for a bit until he finally reveals himself and forgives them. They have a grand old party, and Joseph invites the whole house of Jacob to come and live out the famine in Egypt where he can provide for them. The entire house of Jacob migrates to Egypt. Jacob pronounces his final blessings on the heads of his children, and he dies. The whole book ends with Joseph dying at the age of 110. Seems sprightly. So now that the table's set, the entire house of Jacob, which is now the house of Israel, is living in Egypt. The end. Of course, by verse 11 of Exodus chapter 1, the Pharaoh puts them all in bondage, but that's a story for another day.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's it.
We did it?
We did it.
Oh, my God.
I just freely admit, and listeners who might want to write in, I did skip a lot of things. I skipped over fair amounts of the narrative.
Listen, you didn't skip over any more than all of the pastors who have ever taught Christianity.
Point.
Yeah.
So again, just to reiterate the messages in this book, and this is the partial list from last week with some augmentation. Man is made in God's image. Man is separate from and has dominion over all life on earth and earth itself. Introduction of the concept of original sin and how it's the bitch's fault. Marriage is only for men and women. Women come from men and are subservient. Black and brown people are descendants of Cain and cursed. Acceptability of polygamy, advocacy of genocide, circumcision, a complete endorsement of slavery, and the acceptability of incest and fear of masturbation. Thanks, Genesis.
Yay.
Yeah. It keeps on giving.
It's a good book. It's the good book, really, when you think about it.
And it's in the bin.
All right.
It's in the bin. All right, everybody. Thanks, Doug. With that very clear narrative, let's move on.
Well, friends, that's it for this week's show.
Hey, we'd love to hear from you. Send us an email at howto@howtoheretic.com.
Or if you were one of the live models for the Hieronymus Bosch Garden of Earthly Delights paintings and dated a crab-based woman, please leave us a voicemail about it at 903-88-HOW-TO, which is 903-884-6986. I'm also on Twitter at HowToHeretic.
And thanks to our awesome patrons.
And thanks to Cody Layton for editing the show.
And thanks to you, dear friends, for tuning in.
Bye, friends.
Bye.